Tell us how the rest of the day is going to run. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the stage, to where I am, Mr. Odewale from the Ministry of Budget and National Planning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just make a quick correction. It's not your fault. It's not my fault either. My name is not Samuel. I am Samson. There's a great difference. You know who Samson was in the Bible. So I want to remain Samson and not change it at a later date. That's an aside. Let me formally, on the existing protocol, welcome the Executive Governor, His Excellency, the Governor of Borno State, ably represented here this morning. My own Honorable Minister of State for my ministry, Budget and Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed. If we have members of the National Assembly present here, so that I don't get blamed that I don't recognize you, you are also recognized. I haven't seen any, but I'm sure they are on their way. Your Excellencies, the ambassadors present, heads of development cooperation, heads of global international organizations, delegates of several agencies present here this morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the press. It gives me great pleasure to be here this morning to welcome you all to this occasion, the national conversation on bridging the humanitarian development peace nexus in the northeastern part of my country, Nigeria. I can vividly recall that in November last year, stakeholders in the humanitarian field in Nigeria gathered together at the headquarters of my ministry, the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, to review the performance of the 2017 Humanitarian Response Plan and take a look at the draft humanitarian needs review already conducted in the Northeast. This was done in preparation for the 2018 Humanitarian Response Plan. Today's event is coming after the completion of the 2018 HRP and its launch. The implementation of the 2018 HRP is progressing seamlessly. On the other hand, the implementation of the 2018 budget, federal budget, is about to begin with the passage of the bill and Mr. President's expected accent soon. We are yet to start the process for the preparation of the 2019 federal and state budgets. The implication of the above scenario is that today's event is very auspicious, as the outcome can be properly considered in the preparation of the federal and state budget for 2019. This event, therefore, has been carefully packaged to involve a broad spectrum of stakeholders in the humanitarian space, including the youth and the media, civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, and the donor community. The beneficiaries are not left out either, with the active participation of the states and local governments, especially from the conflict-affected states of Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe. The program of events is well spaced out, spanning a whole week period. Today's session marks the peak of the event with the opening ceremonies and the high-level dialogue. The high caliber of speakers and discussants here present speaks volume of the expected quality of outcome. I therefore believe that today will mark another milestone in our collective efforts to restore normalcy in the conflict-affected areas of the northeast of my dear country, Nigeria. Permit me at this juncture to thank the Honorable Minister of State, the donor community, the United Nations system, and the head of the Emergency Coordination Center for making this event a reality. Without taking much of your time once again, I welcome you all and wish you a successful deliberation. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, the Permanent Secretary, Samson Odewale. Although Samuel was also a great man. Thank you very much, sir, for those amazing welcome remarks. Let me add to your welcome as you walked in to represent the Adamawa State Governor, the SSG for Adamawa State, Dr. Umar Binda. Thank you very much for being here today, sir. My job is relatively simple. I think all the background work has been done, and I'm here to sort of pass the baton on to my principal here this morning, in terms of, as Chioma said earlier, in terms of introducing what exactly the Nexus, Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus is. So for those of us who are joining us for the first time this morning, welcome to this Nigeria-led national conversation on the Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus beyond the immediate Northeast humanitarian crisis. If you look on the banner and the backdrop behind our guests, you'll see that the tagline is practical, deliverable solutions. We've been here all week in a series of side events leading up to today, having a conversation, a Nigeria-led national conversation, because Nigeria matters. Nigeria matters not just to you and to me. Nigeria matters to the world. Nigeria, as is evidenced here by the wonderful presence of the international community and the ambassadors representing their governments. Nigeria matters in the polity of nations. Nigeria matters for the future of all of us. And we're here because of people, not statistics, not numbers, not just to look at how we can resource the needs of people in the northeast of Nigeria, but because, again, of the faces you see around the room and those outside in the gallery walk, because of the faces behind the opening plenary speakers over there, because of Tabitha outside, who is here from Chibok, she arrived yesterday, who painted herself several paintings which document her experience, because of her, because of Fatima, who we heard about yesterday, because of Mohammed, who we heard about the day before, because of the 60 or so young people who gathered here in this very room on Monday for the youth event from as far away as Borno, as far away as Lagos, Edo State, Delta State, to have a national conversation, to exchange ideas of what have we done right and what have we done wrong, because Nigeria matters. Nigeria is a key player on the global stage, and we're here to ensure she indeed takes her rightful place amongst the polity of nations. Today is a culmination of what has been the most incredible week, packed full of exciting events, exhibits, and interactions. As I said, it started with a youth event, which I think was really the best thing because it so energized us. We're still going on that adrenaline today. They came in to talk about the role of media in preventing violent extremism. It was incredible to see a room full of young entrepreneurs, employers, social activists. One young lady said, "I didn't have a job, but now I'm not only employed, but I'm an employer of people." Yesterday was jam-packed from a CSO, NGO, INGO side event, and I recognize here today the INGO coordinator, Jennifer, is here in this room. And we moved from that to an amazing private sector session, and the CEO of the NESG was with us for that amazing session, and again, he's here today. Welcome, sir. So what are the things we've already found this week? What is this national conversation about? Our approach needs to be less needs-based and more access-based. We need to leverage our learning from other settings, but both locally, nationally, and internationally. We need a 360-degree holistic coordination at multiple levels is required to harmonize public and private sector activities. So a multi-stakeholder accountability framework could offer us a way to structure this. We found out that there is no time to waste. There is no tomorrow, it is today. We must act now. We found out that this needs to be a new way of working, as local as possible, as international as necessary. Hence, we're Nigeria-led today. And that being said, we also found out that there needs to be a platform for regular dialogue. And so yesterday, coming out of yesterday's session, we said, get out your calendars and save the date for 6 months' time, first week in December, so we can come back and say, what have we done? What have we learned? What has happened in the interim? What are the lessons learned? How do we come to this nexus? And if the PowerPoint people can just drop that page down for me a little bit. Because we all talk about this humanitarian development peace nexus. And so I thought, let's get the definition up. Can I have the PowerPoint, please? Thank you. Let's get the definition up. What exactly is this nexus? We are breathless with anticipation. What is the nexus? The permanent secretary actually pretty much stole the words out of my mouth earlier when he talked about the bridging that gap, bridging the nexus. I needed to go down further, please. It's right at the very top of the page. Thank you very much. Right at the top. No, not that. It's a definition of nexus. You were on the right page earlier. Okay. So I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm going to tell you what it is. A nexus is a meeting point. There we go. A nexus is a connection or a series of connections linking two or more things. It is a connected group or series. It is the center and the most important point or place. It is critical, is what it is. Since the very beginning of this work that we started in 2015, 2016, way back in the early Rebuild Borno days, at the very beginning we said we needed to start development at the same time or alongside humanitarian to ensure that we don't end up in the place that many of the countries in the world have most unfortunately found themselves. We have a protracted crisis yet, yes, but we cannot have a protracted humanitarian situation. So, what we're going to do here today is talk about that, continue that conversation. As the permanent secretary said earlier, he said, we're going to bridge that gap. So I leave you with this. We build bridges, we trust bridges, and we cross bridges. Thank you. We seem to have lost our moderator, so I would like to invite the Honourable Minister to make her remarks. Thank you.
Good morning, Excellencies. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me, as we say in Nigeria, to stand on the already established protocols. It is really an honor for me and a privilege to be here today as we mark this very important event, a multi-stakeholder, country-led conversation on the humanitarian development nexus. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to use this opportunity to commend the efforts of those that have worked tirelessly with us, not just for this conference, but since the beginning of the humanitarian crisis in the Northeast. This meeting today is one of the collaborative efforts, a step that we're taking to actualize an initial call that we made last year, that I made last year, November, for us to have a national conversation on the humanitarian development nexus during the working group while we were preparing for the HRP 2018. Today's discussion will help to broaden and focus beyond humanitarian support to include sustainable development while promoting peace and security in the affected regions in our country. It also allows us to evolve the current humanitarian response plan, the 2018 plan, to align this plan with the government's national priorities as encapsulated in the Nigeria Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. The ultimate goal for us is to have a coherent a nationally led approach to coordination. We have made a great start this long week conversation, and Yodi has so eloquently described what has happened from Monday till yesterday. Additionally, there were forums on news, there was forums on the CSOs, INGOs, and NGOs, and also the very important forum of the private sector. I'm also aware that on Wednesday, that is yesterday, a day that I wanted to join you but was constrained because we were in fact, that there were a series of short films and screens. I missed the fun. I understand those films highlighted and promoted education and literacy by communities in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, for today's national conversation, we all decided while we were planning to use the Northeast as a case study, given the great strides that we have achieved in development and implementation of a multi-stakeholder response for addressing the crisis in the region. As you are aware, Northeast, along with the rest of the Lake Chad region, including Niger, Chad, and Cameroon, comprises has a common problem, most of which is felt in the northeastern part of our country. The root causes of the crisis that we have in the Northeast includes development, but it also includes environmental challenges such as the drying up of the Lake Chad and also the level of poverty and the lack of development in the region. This has resulted in a large number of unemployed youths who have been taken advantage of by the criminal sect of Boko Haram and turned themselves, in some cases, into cannon fodder, creating mayhem on the whole of society. The federal government has made some specific remedial provisions for the Northeast in the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. And the provisions include comprehensive multi-sectoral development policies and programs. Priority is being given to programs that focus on rehabilitation and resettlement, peace building, security, infrastructure, and social services, as well as resilience building to be able to enhance livelihood and empowerment for our people that are affected. Farming is particularly identified as an activity that will hasten a return to resilience and sustainability. Ultimately, we aim to guarantee equal opportunity for everyone to take part in economic activities, not just big businesses, but small businesses as well as individuals, particularly economic activities for women and for youths who have been disproportionately affected by the crisis. Let me also take this opportunity to acknowledge the combined efforts of the multinational task force, of the Nigerian Army, of the Nigerian Armed Forces, not just the Army, but the Nigerian Armed Forces, and all relevant actors in dislodging the insurgents from towns and villages in the Northeast. While much has been achieved by the government and its partners, there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. To this end, we are currently implementing the 2018 Humanitarian Response Plan and developing a medium-term plan that adopts the Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus approach. This medium-term plan will emphasize a coherent coordination approach. It will recognize that humanitarian development and peace-building efforts should not be carried out in silos, but instead considerably complementary and interdependent to each other. Given the depth of experience that we have gathered over the last couple of 2 to 3 years for the work that we've been doing in the Northeast, it is an ideal case for us to consider. This is not to say that there are no other crises in our country, but the Northeast one is a classic one that gives us an opportunity to show this nexus that we are trying to achieve. So by doing this, we'll be exploring the effectiveness of the existing humanitarian and development partner programs that have been deployed in the region. We'll be able to identify lessons that have been learned, what we've done well and what has not been done so well. We'll be able to begin the process of developing a coordinated multi-stakeholder framework The ultimate goal is for us to develop a clear understanding of how to practically implement humanitarian and a development peace plan, which is inclusive of all relevant stakeholders, that is to say government, development partners, civil society, donors, and the private sector. While also being country-led and country-owned, with clearly defined targets, we seek to carry our partners along. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, as a coordinating ministry for donor engagement in Nigeria, has proactively engaged with our partners to channel donor support to affected areas. I once again want to thank our donors, specifically all the donors that are here. The support that you provided, especially to the 2017 HRP, has been the main reason why we have moved the humanitarian crisis in the Northeast from an acute situation to a point now where we're talking about reconciliation, peace, resilience, and the hastening of development for the region. We thank you. I want to also thank the international non-governmental organizations, the NGOs, the civil society organizations, and all of the ministries, departments, and agencies in the federal government as well as the affected states that have worked tirelessly to ensure that there is return to stability in the region. All of our efforts have helped to ameliorate sufferings of millions of innocent Nigerians that have been afflicted by the crisis, by the Boko Haram crisis. I want to also appreciate our partners and friends for supporting a government-led coordination effort. In conclusion, let me call on all humanitarian and development actors to keep faith with the new way of working. Let me state specifically that the mandate of the UN system in Nigeria, as in other countries, is to support the effort of the government of Nigeria. And in the spirit of the new way of working, we are calling all to join hands with the government of Nigeria, with the people of Nigeria, and keep faith with the tenet that says the new way of working is to work as local as possible and as international as necessary. While looking forward to the deliberations of today, I want to thank all of you for being here, and thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Minister. Once again, can we have a round of applause for the Honorable Minister of State for Budget and Planning? It's my pleasure to invite the second speaker, someone who has worked directly with the organizers and partners and almost everybody in this room to ensure that this event comes to pass, and also on several of other development and economic projects in Nigeria. It's my pleasure to welcome the Country Director of the World Bank, Mr. Rachid Ben Masood. Round of applause, please.
Honorable Minister of States, Ms. Zainab Ahmed, senior federal and state government officials, Excellencies, the ambassadors and the head of agencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for inviting us to participate in this timely and much needed conversation, which we at the World Bank Group are happy to support. For the World Bank Group to achieve its twin goals of ending extreme poverty and boosting shared prosperity of the bottom 40% population in developing countries, there must be peace and stability. However, as observed by our World Bank Group President, Dr. Jim Yong Kim, a look at the world today regrettably suggests that security and stability are not the norm for many people and nations. This threatens our collective hope to end extreme poverty boost shared prosperity, and secure sustainable development. The nexus between security, humanitarian, and development call for a concerted effort towards addressing common development challenges, including poverty, illiteracy, inequality, and social exclusion, all of which are conducive to political alienation and often push people into the hands of violent extremism. To confront hatred and violence, we need to work together to promote equal opportunities for all, especially for women and youth, through job creation and social inclusion, among others. In doing so, we would wrinkle the hope for a brighter future, which is possibly the most powerful weapon against violent extremism. Overcoming conflict and violence is a priority for the World Bank Group. We are tailoring our intervention to address the root causes of conflict and insecurity, which are poverty and social exclusion, youth unemployment, lack of access to quality services as education, health, and justice, weak and ineffective institutions, distrust in government for lack of accountability and citizens' participation, rights violation and corruption. Also, forced human displacement is a protracted phenomenon, and as such, humanitarian and development actors are working hand in hand in their support to the displaced people and host communities. We also need to tackle recovery, peace building, and climate change together. This is a regional agenda which crosses state borders and call for regional cooperation in security, humanitarian, and development. The World Bank Group stands by Nigeria and its neighbor, Chad, Niger, and Cameroon, in overcoming the protracted crisis caused by violent extremism in the Lake Chad region. We have a long-standing partnership with the government of the region and will pursue our support to the strengthening of the core foundations of stability, peace, and prosperity. The challenge of strengthening of how we as development organizations work with humanitarian, peace, security, and other development actors is hugely important for the World Bank Group. As an institution, we have committed to the UN-led new way of working approach, agreed at the World Humanitarian Forum in 2016, which establishes a path for strengthening the human development nexus in support of collective outcomes that reduce risks and vulnerability. Beyond this formal framework, we are committed to this cause of better collaboration, coordination, and convergence of our respective programs because this is the right thing to do to achieve a greater impact on the lives of those affected by the crisis. In the past few years, the World Bank and its shareholder countries have moved to greatly increase the financing that we provide to fragile and conflict-affected situations. The 18th round of IDA, which is the bank's main channel of concessional resources, roughly doubled the core allocation going to the fragile states to around $14 billion for the next 3 years. New funding windows add several billions more for countries receiving refugees to support private sector investment in high-risk setting and to pilot national effort to mitigate conflict and violence risk. In practical terms, this means that we are supporting many more programs in fragile setting, including those in active conflict and humanitarian emergencies. In these situations, we must all work together more effectively as the success of our endeavor is interlinked. Humanitarian development peace collaboration is no longer a linear sequence. This is the case in the northeast of Nigeria. Since 2016, The World Bank has committed more than $775 million in support of Nigerian government project for recovery and development in the Northeast. Strong collaboration with all of you, including local communities, private sector, civil society organizations, NGOs, partners, will be essential for this project to fasten their pace of implementation, to be implemented successfully, to achieve our shared goal of bringing sustainable recovery to the region. Turning to our main task of today, that of determining how to strengthen this human development nexus here in Nigeria, I would like to propose some key elements for your consideration and further deliberation during the course of these 2 days. We wholeheartedly welcome the government leadership of this conversation and encourage that this event to be launched, that is launched today, is actually a launching of a process of regular dialogue and concrete actions. The critical importance of Nigerians to use their innovation, entrepreneurship, and resilience to develop their own solutions for lasting peace and prosperity, and the role that we could play in supporting this effort. We welcome the entire partnership with UN agencies, NGOs, development partners, different level of government, civil societies, communities. Each organization and entity has a comparative advantage, but without effective coordination, the sum of the parts is less than the whole, and that is the opposite of synergy. This forum offers a great opportunity to think through how the considerable challenge of coordination and convergence will be met, and to learn from both successes and failure. There is so much to learn from international experience, but solution must be context-specific, localized, and reflect the particular challenges of Nigeria. There should be emphasis on the development angle, with the government in the lead, and on the need to move as quickly as possible to scale up development intervention while recognizing the necessity of ongoing humanitarian program. We encourage a strong focus on how to work more closely to enhance the implementation of program in the Northeast, given the complexity of the range of interventions. We agreed we should agree on the need to sustain the progress and the momentum in the Northeast despite the election set for the next years. This include that the implementation of major development program should not be slowed down at this critical time. Security remained a precondition for the implementation of humanitarian development assistance to reach the victim of violence and assist them in rebuilding their future. And we rely on the government to provide this. The regional dimension of the human development nexus is equally critical. Finally, in our talk of framework of approaches, we must remain focused on what strengthening the human development nexus in Nigeria would really mean in terms of actual impact on the lives of the people. Yesterday, US Ambassador, His Excellency, gave a different definition of nexus. It's what is next step for us, if you recall. So it's very important, it's what's next for us. To conclude, we look forward to working with you all to make the Northeast Nigeria a stronger and safer place for everyone to prosper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rashid. I would like to recognize the presence of the representative of the Chief of Defense Staff, Commodore James Pinder. A round of applause for him, please. I would also like to recognize the presence of the representative of the European Union Ambassador, Ambassador Richard Young. Round of applause, please. Just before we call the next speaker, I would like to invite to the podium the CEO of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Mr. Jaye Laoye. Round of applause. Mr. Jaye Laoye, please join us on stage. It's quite important for this event because apart from humanitarian and development, the economy of Nigeria plays a major role, and the NESG have been quite vital in contributing to that sector. The next speaker who I'm about to invite is the representative of the United Nations Resident Coordinator and Humanitarian Coordinator in Nigeria, here represented by Mohammed Four, head of UNICEF. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
To the Honorable Minister of State, Minister of Planning and Budget, my sister Zainab Ahmed, to the member of the diplomatic mission here, to the governor of Borno State and Adamawa State, ably represented here, to my fellow partner from the development and humanitarian community. As we say in Nigeria, allow me to stand on existing protocol. I wanted, as a first word, to say on behalf of Mr. Edouard Kalon, the resident and the humanitarian coordinator in Nigeria, on behalf of the United Nations family, on behalf of the humanitarian community in Nigeria, to say thank you. Thank you for giving us opportunity to be part of such an important and timely event. I'm calling it important and timely because in fact it is something which is extremely high in the agenda of the United Nations today. It is high because it's building on our long story and history of working on crises in different parts of the world, from which we have got a number of learning. But it is also high because the new Secretary General, the new Deputy Secretary General, the member states say that there is no option for United Nations than working in this direction of nexus between humanitarian development, peace, and security. Coming back to our history, there are some learning, and there are many of them. Probably I will not touch all of them today, but I will just highlight that any crisis we have worked in, any intervention we have made, have led us to a critical lesson that there is no humanitarian crisis which can be solved only by using humanitarian intervention. Any humanitarian crisis has root causes, has underlying causes that need intervention that go beyond humanitarian intervention, and that need to look at the structural aspect, work on development, and address those structural aspects if we want to sustain any gain we have. We have seen it here in the Northeast. There has been an unprecedented scale-up of the response in the humanitarian crisis. But today we know that unless we go to the root crisis that was there before the crisis, and that has in large part led to this crisis, unless we address those crises, we will be still struggling using this humanitarian intervention, probably saving life, probably reducing suffering, probably reducing vulnerability, but not setting longer-term solution to the human suffering that we have seen in the Northeast. That's one of the learning we have got. We have to also learn that peace is a precondition for any development. Peace is a precondition for any human well-being. But you don't get peace just by having an agreement signed. If that was the case, peace would be everywhere today in the world. But what we realize also is that peace is not end of war. Peace is not end of fighting. But peace is someone you built in the mind Peace is somewhere you build in the heart of the people. That's how you sustain the gain you want to have if you sign an agreement or if you work on a long duration in the field of peace. It's because of this reason that the new agenda of UN realized today that everywhere we work, trying to reduce human suffering, save life, reduce vulnerability, we can sustain those gains only by working in a nexus that take us from the reduction of that suffering, from those humanitarian intervention toward much longer term solution, build on development, but building also on peace, which is in the mind and in the heart of the people. This is why I think this dialogue, this today gathering, could not be more timely for us as a United Nation. And I want to reassure you, Honorable Minister, that as a United Nation, we don't have any option but being with you and supporting you. And one more reason I can mention, and this time I'm removing my hat of UNICEF rep, my hat of representative of the resident coordinator, and just speak as a son of this sub-region. On everything we do in this region, we look after Nigeria. If it is building peace in Liberia, we wouldn't have it if Nigeria was not there. Sierra Leone, the same. Few years back, I mean, less than 2 years ago, Gambia was almost on the edge of falling into a big crisis, but it's because of the hands of Nigeria. We look toward Nigeria as a power which is not only building on its demographic weight, as a power which is not building on its economic weight, but as a power also which is building on the vibrant population that it has, on the opportunity that it has, on the ability to innovate that it has. And this is why for us this dialogue today is important, because it helps us also to set the blueprint, to set the tone, to set the precedent, show the direction, because we are in a region also that have so many crises. Look at West and Central Africa. There are crises almost in every single country. This is why we want to make this bet, to take this journey with you, and make sure that whatever we succeed today in Nigeria will not be only for the Nigerian people, but it will go beyond the Nigerian border. It will serve this sub-region. It will serve sub-Saharan Africa, and by doing so, we will be serving the world. That's the mission we have, and those are the words I wanted to share with you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the United Nations community, wishing you successful dialogue, successful roundtable, and successful engagement, and reiterating the fact that we will be next to you, Honorable Minister. We will be always enjoying your leadership in this process. And as I say, whatever we gain here will be something that is going to serve beyond the border, the boundary and the border of Nigeria. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed Fall. The next speaker who will be giving his remarks is the CEO of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Mr. Jai Laoye. Welcome, sir.
Honorable Minister, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you for extending this invitation to the private sector. And it's nice to be here, and it's nice to know that finally we're beginning to look at coordination. I want to appreciate all the support that everyone is giving to ensure that we stem the tide of challenges we had in the Northeast, and the fact that people are taking care of those who are in need, those who are in distress, those who are facing insecurity. But again, what is important is the fact that we need to restore the Northeast back to where business was thriving, where activities were being done. And those of us in the private sector are committed to doing our part. We notice that unless we begin to have businesses back to the Northeast, unless we begin to have needs of people met, in a very sustainable manner where they themselves can own their lives. Whatever it is we're doing is not complete. Today, if you discuss with those at the IDP camp, what most of them are saying is we want to go back and have our own life by ourselves. And businesses are willing to work. I was discussing with someone, I said, look, one of the things that the Northeast is noted for very strongly is the fact that there are very large arable land that can still be used for farming. And there are many private sector outfits in Nigeria that are looking for how they can significantly do backward integration and have those agri work used as input for what is it they are doing. So why they disconnect? Why can we not sit down together in a very holistic manner and see an end-to-end value chain analysis and see where the humanitarian government work stops, where the private sector work begins, and how can we ensure that we put schools and all systems to work in these communities. I believe that there is a need for us to look at creating a new ecosystem where the people can live, and that's the commitment that the private sector have in this, is prepared to work with government and development partners. I want to thank again the Honorable Minister for trying to coordinate this effort, because sometimes some of the confusion we have on the private sector is that you don't even know who you are talking to, because there are too many people raising funds, too many people working at what needs to be done, but you don't even know what is the scale. But what I've seen here since yesterday and today is that we all know that there's a need for us to coordinate, and there's a need for us to coalesce together and have a centralized viewpoint of looking at things. That we are the private sector committed to do. Our people have been, and I mean the private sector, they've been doing things individually because they don't know who to connect to. But with this arrangement, we'll be able to bring them all together, and our people want to do business. And like you said, there's nothing wrong in making profit is not a crime. And even in crisis area, there are opportunities. People don't run away from risk that can be calculated. In fact, one of the challenges of business is knowing your risk and knowing how to calculate your risk. It's uncertainties that people cannot handle. There are businesses that want to go into the Northeast and they want to work with us, and we look forward to a very coordinated effort. On our own part, we commit to ensure that the Nigerian people, strong and resilient as we are willing, with your support, to make a very good working of what is done in the Northeast, so that never again do we have this kind of situation. And we look beyond Northeast, and I'm glad what the Honourable Minister said, that the Northeast is just a case study. There are other areas, so that from the lessons learned from the Northeast, we can then ensure that we can nip problems in the board and we can make people work for themselves. Nigeria has very, very entrepreneurial, hard-working people, and all we all need to do is to ensure we tap into that energy and make Nigeria solve this problem. I want to thank you, and I want to say we're committed to supporting this move on our part as private sector, and we wish you a very, very successful deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Just as we had the private sector event yesterday, which we found to be very crucial and important to the Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus, we also on Tuesday had a Zero Hunger and Food Security Day. It is my pleasure to welcome the Regional Director of the World Food Programme, Mr. Abdul Dieng, to speak.
Thank you very much. I would first like to really commend the Minister of Planning and Budget and her team for organizing such an event. My remark will be very brief because a lot has been said. But today, when I was sitting there, I was just looking back 2 years ago when we, as a WFP and other partners, came to Nigeria at the request of the government of Nigeria to help set up and respond to the humanitarian crisis. the narrative today has changed. At that time, we were talking about saving life, we were talking about avoiding famine, and today we're talking about the Nexus. It's big, big progress, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the donors for having provided huge support, and also thanking all the diplomatic community, the NGOs, because this has been done with the support of everybody. And taking into account this new framework, the World Food Program has almost completed what we call our next country strategy for Nigeria. Before articulating such strategy, we have worked with the government to conduct what we call the Zero Hunger Review with the support of national entities. And that has helped us now to frame a strategy which is in line with the Nexus, which will be a 4-year plan starting 2019. And I would also like to commend the government for their support for such a big move. Maybe to just, before I conclude, touch on something that was said by previous speakers about peace. And I think Mohammed mentioned it. I had the privilege to have a regional job. And if I look at in the region, in West and Central Africa, the number of crises that we are confronted with in Mali, in Central Africa, we were looking at the amount of money today being invested on security. $1 billion for the UN mission in Mali, another $1 billion per year for the mission in Central Africa, another $500 million for the G5 Sahel mission. Thanks God that we no longer have a mission in Liberia and Cote d'Ivoire. But in addition to those investments being made by the international community, if you go to Mali, to Niger, to Burkina, the Sahel, the G5 Sahel, today it's almost impossible for them to implement any development project because all the money is being spent on security. And we could have avoided it, and we should. Because to gain peace, we need to invest. We need, I think it was said yesterday by the ambassador, particularly giving hope to people. Because today there are other partners, or there are other actors, offering something particularly to the youth. So we must invest on peace. This is why really I'm very happy that this national dialogue talking about Nexus, humanitarian development peace, is really timely. And I would like again to thank the government of Nigeria under the leadership of the minister for having invited us to join you for this important discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abdu. It's wonderful to have you here. Looking up at the panel, I've just realized that we have a Senegalese-Nigeria nexus happening up here as well, and Morocco. So Morocco, Senegal, and Nigeria nexus. It's wonderful to have our family from around the African region. We can do it. Africa can do it. It is my pleasure today to welcome to the podium to give his goodwill message on behalf of the Governor of Borno State, His Excellency Professor Umara, who, I have a little background to this. The very first day when we gathered in this hotel on the 19th of April 2016, Professor Umara was here as part of that team to say, let's do what he's doing very ably in Borno State as a commissioner. If I call him His Excellency Triple R is my pet name for him, very ably in rebuilding Borno. And so we've been together from the very beginning. It is my absolute joy to welcome you up here today to say a few words. Thank you, sir.
Permit me to stand on the existing protocol. On behalf of the Northeast governors, it is my singular honor and privilege to present a goodwill message on this very important occasion, TAC National Conversation on the Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus. To we in the Northeast, this national conversation is very timely, and thereby commend the efforts of ECC and the Budget and National Planning Ministry for convening this National Conversation Forum. It is our sincere hope that the outcome of this conversation will result into developing a robust framework that will provide effective coordination, mechanism to bridge the huge gap resulting from weak coordination of both stabilization and recovery projects in the region. To this end, the forum should drill down on the key elements of the operationalization of the humanitarian peace and development nexus, identifying synergies, barriers, and coordination gaps existing in the region with a view to harmonizing positions, suggest a way forward for sustainable coordination framework. On behalf of the government and people of Borno State and that of the Northeast region, I wish to seize this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to all the developing partners for the enormous contribution they have been rendering in the Northeast toward uplifting the standard of living of the displaced communities in the region. Thank you very much.
Asker Ingana, thank you very much, Your Excellency. It is now, well, first, before I say that, actually, I want to go back a little bit to what has been said. His Excellency just said very, very eloquently, I don't think I could have put it better myself, so if I may, we might steal your comments for the outcome document, that it is absolutely critical and that we need to build a sort of sustainable sort of coordination framework. We heard earlier from my brother Mohammed about the need for us all in Nigeria together to work together to do this. We heard from Chief Lawi earlier that private sector is ready, and that he said yesterday in the most wonderful way that money is not a problem. Money is not a problem. Money is not the problem. We just need to know how to apply and spend it better. Rashid from World Bank has talked about what is in place, what needs to be done, the resources that are available, that we need to be practical and we need to deliver quickly. We need to deliver for that woman who needs to deliver her baby in 9 months' time. We cannot wait 5 years or 6 years for a development partner to build a hospital. We need to find a solution for her today so that she may live and not die. Abdu says we've come a long way, and indeed we have, from fighting famine, averting famine, facing famine, running away from that word last year, working all very hard together. And we've come to a phase now where the acute humanitarian situation seems to somewhat be, you know, slightly, it's under control. We don't want to get complacent, but we say that that is under control. How do we go forward? So without further ado, I would like to invite the international community, who are here today to come and join us and say a few words. I would like Harriet, Her Excellency Harriet Thompson representing, oh well, actually the High Commissioner to the UK. Please come up.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Her Excellency the Minister for Budget and Planning for convening this event. I'm sure I speak for the rest of the international community. I'll let them speak for themselves. I'll speak for the British. We are delighted that this event is happening today. We're delighted to see Nigeria taking the lead in this national conversation. As you said, I think Nigeria matters. The northeast of Nigeria matters, not only to Nigeria but beyond Nigeria as well. What we want to do is to support the Nigerian government in our efforts, both on the humanitarian front, on the development front, on the security front. It's only by bringing those efforts together that we'll find a lasting solution to the problems in northeast Nigeria. And it's only by doing that that we will really see the whole of Nigeria fulfill its potential. So we're very, very happy to be a part of these collective efforts and look forward to being strongly led by the Nigerian government. Thank you.
Thank you. His Excellency, Ireland.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister and colleagues. I would also like to stand on existing protocols and really just to echo what my colleague from the United Kingdom has said. We strongly support this move towards ownership by the government of Nigeria. I was with the Minister in Oslo just over a year ago, and I think we have made substantial progress since then. I've visited the northeast, and this week I was also in Yola, and I've witnessed the change over the last 4 years, and I think we're making an important step forward. So I'd like to also congratulate everybody on this initiative. Thank you very much.
His Excellency, Norway.
Standing on existing protocol. Minister, Norway having hosted with Nigeria and Germany the Oslo conference in February last year, I think the attention created to the crisis has really improved because it was a sort of forgotten crisis. And your able leadership and the responsibility you're taking through this process and this conversation, I think is a good step of what the international community has called for, a national ownership to response to the crisis. The danger of every crisis is that it's becoming a protracted crisis, and you need to avoid that, and you can only avoid that by taking this responsibility, engaging civil society, engaging the business community, but you need to really push to avoid this becoming a protracted crisis. We've seen it all over the continent that crisis seems to be deepening, and if you don't get out of it soon, it will be very, very difficult. So that's my message to you. We will support you. The international community, including Norway, will support you, but you need to make the extra effort to avoid it becoming a protracted crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. His Excellency, Botswana.
Honorable Minister and distinguished participants. Well, Botswana is a small country with its own diversification challenges, It's a country which has also benefited a lot from the goodwill of the international community right from independence. So in terms of it's doing its own to help other states, it has helped several countries where possible in the region. But I just want to say, as a as a career foreign affairs officer, I'm really, keenly aware of the challenges of this whole of government coordination, facilitation for the foreign ministry. So I really, from listening in to previous speakers, really appreciate what the ministry is doing. Honourable Minister, the coordination that you are doing to help address these challenges. So I really would like to thank everybody for participating. Thank you.
His Excellency, Japan.
Honorable Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. I'm a new Japanese ambassador here. I arrived in Nigeria only 2 weeks ago, but it is my thank you very much. This is wonderful. I'm very honored and pleased to be here to see the very honorable, responsible leaders of Nigeria, as well as the representative of the international community. So this is a very good start for me to see something is happening in this country. As you may know, Japan has long time working to support the peace building, sustainable development of many countries. Under the peaceful constitution, Japan cannot extend a military solution for the peace. But I don't think this is a restriction of the Japan, but it's a mission of the Japanese government to help, as somebody pointed out, to root cause of the problem and help to realize the sustainable development. So well-coordinated effort with the owners of the Nigeria, as well as international cooperation, Japan would like to continue our effort for the implementation on the ground. So just for the example of the one of the Japanese help, it happened today, this afternoon, at this place, I think. We, together with UN Women, to have the kind of launching project to help the girls, ladies in the northeastern part of this country. I hope this will be helpful for the job creation for the women there, for the empowerment of women, so that the sustainable development and peace will be bring about in this important area of this great country. So I will make up a speech out this, in this afternoon. This is one of the just a few examples, but today I'm very pleased to be here, and I'd like to say that we will continue our effort and help to this great nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. His Excellency Norway referred to the Oslo conference, which was February 24th last year, and looking around the room, it's interesting to see that this is very much building upon what we did there and moving it really to the next step, as that was referred to as the Oslo Humanitarian Conference, and now we move to the Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus. We want to continue to thank Norway for all, and Germany for all that they did at that time. His Excellency, the Netherlands.
Good morning, Honourable Minister for State and Budget Planning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I also would like to say that we are supporting fully, wholeheartedly, the approach for moving now to the next phase for Nexus to development. I think that there's no doubt that this is the way to go. Many things have been said. We, as I said, we are very supportive. I would like to make 2 points maybe. The first point is that, you know, with these kind of conferences, I think it's important that we also maybe agree on some quick wins. Because, you know, people talk about hope, but we have to maybe build hope. And the one way of doing this is also to agree on some quick wins, maybe also during this conference, that we can have at least something to look forward to, let's say in 3 to 6 months, that we have something tangible, and that we celebrate what we have achieved, and then move forward. Second point I would like to make is, of course, there are many priorities. I think agriculture, food security is certainly one of them. And I come from an agricultural country. And I can tell you that, you know, technology sometimes really can help us. There are many things possible, particularly in the field of agriculture. It is possible, technically speaking, to produce 100 kilo of tomatoes on 1 square meter these days. This is technically possible. That's really wonderful, with very little water and very little ingredients. So we should make use of that. And my country is certainly willing to share that experience. And well, I really hope that we can build on these type of technology advances that are very feasible. So thank you very much, and good luck all of you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. When His Excellency and I met a couple of months ago, we had a very detailed discussion on agriculture and the uses and the need for looking at that area very seriously. So I promised to find him a rather ancient book that was written by a man called Dupé Olatubosun about 30 years ago. So I've found it. I've found it. And now, His Excellency, the United States of America.
This really is a meeting about what is next for us. And as everybody in the room knows who has tried to raise money to, as the Japanese ambassador said, he will do this afternoon, make sure that a young girl or a woman gets as much of a chance to make Nigeria her Nigeria and this world her own as every young man. Sometimes it's hard to raise money. I'm encouraged by the businessman who says money is not the problem. But we've spent enough of our time trying to raise it in Oslo and all over the world to know that that might not be your problem, but it's been our problem. But we got to ask ourselves why. And the answer is because, unlike the guy with the printing press, we diplomats actually don't make money. I'm not saying I need a raise. The taxpayers are taking good care of me. But you know, it really isn't about money, because money is, in fact, simply a symbol of hopes achieved, goals met, food put on the table, medicine when you need it, and maybe a ride on a motorbike to get to the clinic. Money is absolutely not the indicator. The indicator is people, hope, love, and promise. But as you think about these next few months, I applauded first in my mind and then in my heart and then with my hands when Mohammed Fall talked about Nigeria's role in this region. But the truth is, Nigeria plays that role for all of us. There are people who do not live near the sea, who are not in the eye of the storm today, and who do not fish from the shores of Lake Chad. But all around the world, as every person who deals with crisis knows, the temperature of crisis is rising. And as every person in the world knows, most of these crises are not God-driven, like the storms that every year come across the South Atlantic towards us, or the North Atlantic. Most of these crises are driven in the hearts of men and women where the light no longer shines and hope is no longer realized. So it's true. Hope is not a plan. Money is not the constraint. The plan is people. The constraint is people. And what Nigeria needs is not just to have more hands coordinating how to guide the money that is already flowing, but like a Dutch farmer, to have more hands in a smaller space, realizing that it is the ideas put together that grow the tomatoes and everything else we need to grow hope. So the question I've got is not only will we integrate our efforts with the private sector of Nigeria, but will Nigerians turn out their pockets to invest? They're already investing their hopes. They're already investing their blood. They're already investing literally their bodies in this life that we are privileged to share with you. And now the question is whether we can create, as a businessman said yesterday and today, an environment in which that light of hope will shine and will determine that something wonderful is truly next for all of us. Thank you.
His Excellency, the European Union Ambassador Richard Young.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you. I'm not the ambassador, okay? And he's not here at the moment. He may think I've organised a coup d'état in his absence. But coming on this stage after such a long line of distinguished ambassadors and contributions and opening comments, I'm reminded of something I heard another ambassador say in a similar situation. And he said that so much has been said, but not yet by me. And I feel I'm in that situation. Honourable Minister, it's a real pleasure to be at this occasion and to share with you our encouragement and our good wishes to make a success of this event and to make a success of what follows on this event. We all know that we have a serious problem in the Northeast and that this has affected many people's lives, has damaged many people's lives, that we face a threat that exists there. And there's many ways that people try and diagnose this problem and try and understand this problem. I know the RRR Commissioner has thought many hours and days and weeks on this issue. But we realize that whatever the nature of that problem, whether it finds itself in poverty, whether it finds itself in grievances, whether it finds itself in people's ideology, whether it finds itself wherever, that we need to have a holistic response or a comprehensive response or an integrated response, which is the word that we use in the European Union, or the nexus that we have before us today. And whenever I think about this idea of the nexus, and I ask you to forgive me if you heard me say this before, I think of 4 legs of a chair. And I think that we have 4 major issues that we have to deal with. I think first we have a political challenge. We face an issue of trying to not capitulate towards ideas and thoughts that actually damage, I think, people's lives. And I think the comments that are made by the UNICEF and other contributions here about peace, and that's about people's hearts and minds, this is important in what we do. I think we face a security issue. We have to get the military working, the police working. We have to get good collaboration between the military, police and civilian authorities. We need to deal with those security issues. We need to get the justice system working. We have a whole issue of demobilization and disassociation, reintegration that has to be addressed. We have a third issue. It's the humanitarian crisis that we're dealing with here and the resources that have been put together into all of that. And then we have the fourth issue, which is about development in the economy and mobilizing all the money that was mentioned by our colleagues and getting the economy to function and work effectively, and where development aid can add its bit to the task ahead of us. So these are the four legs of the chair: the political, the security, the humanitarian, and the development and economic. And as you take forward all of that work, I think, in the Nexus, or whatever you wish to call it, and as the Ambassador says, the next steps for us, I think you will find in the European Union you have a great friend that's willing to work with you as you take that task forward. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. I think we've just heard that there is great political will and support at the highest level from our friends and our partners from around the world, from the United Nations, from the business community, from international financial institutions, from the World Bank, from the governments of the governors of the region. I think we have a platform. We have a start. We have started a conversation. So thank you very much for joining us for this opening session. We'd like to invite you to have a quick break for a few minutes, and we reorganize ourselves for the next session, which will begin in 15 minutes. Thank you. The conversation has started.